Hi, Trevor Cutmore here. Today's video is about renting and what's going on. Why am I being quiet? It's 5 o'clock in the morning. I'll tell you in a sec. I hope you enjoy this video. So this morning, it is 5 o'clock in the morning. I am going off to London. So I live in Lincoln. That's about 150 miles north of London. So it is 5 o'clock this morning and I'm getting ready to go down to meet a number of potential joint venture partners, people who want to invest funds with me. Now, I've met them in a number of ways, whether through YouTube, Facebook, personally, or already done some work with them. But it's 5 appointments through the day that I will be spending time with that. And it's very important, if you're looking to do similar things, to invest that time to go face to face, although I've had many conversations on a telephone, and keep relationships going. It is, because that way you keep that sense of relationship in a very strong way. But today, what are we talking about? We're talking about, and hence I've got my voice a little bit low because the family is sleeping. It's 5 o'clock. I need to do this before I get off, and then this will be set up for you to watch here now. The UK government have turned around and said that if somebody's not paying rent, or they're misbehaving, or the landlord wants their property back, that even if they did serve the Section 21, which is a no-fault notice to quit, that means that a landlord can take their property back at any time after the 6 months AST period, that they can't do that, nor the Section 8. Section 8 notice is a fault notice, so whether there has been financial difficulty, whether they haven't paid the rent for 8 weeks consecutively, and then you can serve that notice. There are a number of other things. We're not going into what these notices actually mean, but the government has said, look, you cannot serve them, and even if you do, with justifiable reason, with Section 8, let's say, the courts aren't going to entertain them. And so if you think about this, it's quite a problem. Just the other day, the government made an announcement that they've extended it right up to September now, and a little bit beyond, it looks like, as well. So there's this reprieve. But the NRLA, National Rental Landlords Association, they have turned around and said, no, this is a travesty basically for landlords, and landlords now need to be able to force people out who are not paying rent. In the same vein, there were people in London, when this was announced just 3 or 4 days ago, were campaigning, were outside demonstrating. There wasn't many people, but they were out demonstrating and saying, no, this is not fair. We need to have more rights, and we need to be able to stay in these properties, and these big wealthy landlords wants to kick us out. Well, it's a tough one. Look, if you're just wanting to take your property back on a Section 21, a no-fault notice, purely because you want to change it, you want to cut it up into flats, you want to, maybe you want to live there. There could be a number of reasons, because you want to develop it in some way, but you're financially sound, then just wait, just be more patient. If a tenant has not paid you for a number of weeks, months, that's a difficult one, because if they have furlough payments and they've decided to take advantage of this time, then that's unfair as well. I'm going to come back to that, but look, I know that there are investors out there who have taken the mortgage holiday from their mortgages, although they're still getting rent. Now that's not fair, because it puts stress right onto the banks who are there to help. So it's a bit of a catch-22. I have to tell you, look, where I lie is, if the investor, the landlord, has taken the payment holidays from the mortgage company and your tenants are not paying, well, hang on a second, you're really quids in here. So you might be paying more than half of that monthly rent on mortgage interest. Now, if you've been given a holiday with that, then why are you chasing the whole of the rent? Do you see? I think there's a moral responsibility for landlords, people like us, to be able to pass things on and look after people. The key thing that, yes, it has been mentioned, is communication. Communication is the source of life. A flower plant cannot survive if osmosis doesn't take place, when the water is drawn from the ground and it transfers up through the stem, the branches and the leaves and the flower to produce fruit. Unfortunately, this is where the breakdown is. And if you have personal conflict with the tenant, you just don't like them, you want them out, you need to bring someone else in to talk to them on your behalf, because communication is the one thing that is going to help us through this. So let's take a tenant, because I know some of you are sitting there saying, Trevor, my tenants aren't paying rent, I can't afford it. Okay, I get it, but what have you done to speak to them? And that's the thing. You've got to talk to them. If a tenant cannot pay rent, what can they pay? That's what you need to ask. Can they pay 50%? This is a really important thing. When we have no communication, all that happens is one side says, oh yeah, they're not paying me, the other one says, I'll do what I want, I'll do what the government can't touch me. The organisation Shelter on tenterhooks, because they truly believe that when the courts open and when the government gives permission for landlords to say, hang on a minute, we're not getting rents, we need to get rid of these people and bring more in, that is when it's all going to start to explode. And Shelter believe that there's going to be thousands and thousands of people made homeless. If you're one of those people who are renting and you're not paying rent, then you've got to think to yourself, this might be a little holiday that, because there's some people who are doing this deliberately. Those who are falling on hard times, look, there is government support, universal credit, other emergency funds with your local council. I used to rent I had 6 flats, used to rent them to people on benefit to help people, especially in housing issues. So I've dealt with people who had nothing, I've dealt with people who've come off the street. The council have emergency funds for rent, and if you're not paying rent, then you should be seeking the council's help, because you're not paying rent because obviously your income has been cut, and that's when the council can jump in. And if you're a landlord, then you should be encouraging your tenants and even contacting your local council and saying, what have you got that I can pass across, or even go and see them and say, look, there's this emergency fund. Can we make an application? Can you make this application so at least we can get going? Because I want to take the pressure off you. My biggest fear is that as I've said, there are landlords out there who are taking payment holidays but receiving rent. I don't agree with that. But the same where there are tenants who are just not paying rent because the government has said we can't get rid of them, and there will be some. My fear for them is, let's suppose you come and you want to come to my properties, and I need all your information. Remember, I use the NLA for tenant checks, so they will check past history, they will do your employment and everything else, they do their check, so I pay for that. And it comes back when they've checked your previous landlord, because remember, they are going to check back where you lived and everything. If they can't find you on the register, some might try and falsify it, but they check the council tax and everything to make sure that you've been living there. But my fear is when they go back and say, well, no, this tenant didn't pay me for 4 months, 5 months, whatever it was, I won't be taking them, purely because they haven't passed the referencing. That's a really sad thing, and those people are going to start going into emergency accommodation. It won't be very nice, and it will affect a lot of families socially. It really will. So look, my message is, and it's an important message, and please, I'd like to get this message out. Communication. That is the way that you and I, as investors, as landlords, can help people. You've got to get to them by whether writing to them, contacting them by phone, text messaging, employ a company to talk to those tenants, talk to your letting agent. In some places, or many places, tenants aren't paying, the letting agents aren't even communicating with you. They may not even be communicating with the tenants now and thinking, we've got too many. I know a friend of mine who's got an agency in Lincoln. He had nearly 15% of people who are either not paying or ran away without paying. This is a ticking time bomb for many of us, and we need to be not just wary, but we need to be proactive. Communicate this where a tenant, and I've done it many times, where a tenant has been financially in difficulty, reduce the rent, take it, work with them, reduce it, get something, and then as they come out and sit down, take them for lunch, say, look, can we come up with a plan? What do we do? And then you might be able to gradually catch up again. Look, there's going to be winners and losers in this all the way. The winners are the ones who communicate and come to a solution that works for everyone. Yes, it's going to be a slow way to recover your funds. So, look, please share this in a group. Please comment. I'd like to know your comments, whether you agree or disagree with me. And subscribe. And I wish you all the best. Have a great week. As I say, I'm shooting off to London in the next 10 minutes. I'm in that car, down all day, back up here tonight. God bless you. Bye-bye.